Next on Sisterhood of the Second Act.
You see health-related commercials on TV all the time. They tell you if you are a certain age, you need a shingles or a pneumonia vaccination. But do you? Dr. Patricia Dell from New Horizons Healthcare relays the facts. And housing costs, both to own or rent, are on the rise, and so is homelessness in the Roanoke region. Angela Penn is Senior Vice President of Real Estate Development at Total Action for Progress. We'll find out what is being done in our region to create more affordable housing options. We'll meet both women on this edition of Sisterhood of the Second Act, right after this.
Sisterhood of the Second Act is brought to you by Cabbie Fashions take you from the boardroom to the beach. Dress for a garden party or a night on the town. Independent cabbie stylist Darlene Marshall will make sure you look your best no matter what the occasion. She'll bring the store to your home for you and your friends or schedule a private consultation. Call Darlene 540-330-6819, 540-330-6819, or find her on Instagram at Dapper Darling, on Facebook at Darlene Marshall Independent Cabbie Stylist.
I'm going to be an oak tree.
I think I'll be a dogwood tree.
My kids said they be looking for a thorny tree for me.
With Evergreen, you can be a tree. Our biodegradable urn combines your ashes, natural soil additives, and a native tree of your choice. Be a tree and grow for tomorrow.
I want to be a tree.
Learn more at evergreenmemorialtrust.com.
Pat Lucas is committed to providing independent financial advice to individuals, families, and small businesses. Contact Pat at 540-798-8104. 540-798-8104. Securities and investment advisory services are offered solely through Equity Services Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, 4401 Starkey Road, Roanoke, Virginia 24018, 540-989-4600. Looking for your first home or retirement home? Realtor Monica Nicely can help you find it. Whether you're moving in or out of the Roanoke region, call Monica 540-449-2019, 540-449-2019. Alcova Mortgage Loan Officer Jonathan Sweat helps you seal the deal with a loan to suit your needs with great rates and terms. Call Jonathan 540-314-8843, 540-314-8843.
Alcova Mortgage, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID number 40508, MLSConsumerAccess.org. Terms and conditions apply. All loans subject to credit approval.
Now from the Fox Radio Roanoke studio, here's Kathy Heberly.
Welcome to Sisterhood of the Second Act. I'm Kathy Heberly. Anyone who's had chickenpox may develop shingles. As we age, our immune system may weaken, predisposing us to illnesses like shingles or pneumonia. Both have vaccinations that can help prevent the conditions. Dr. Patricia Dell is a doctor of osteopathic medicine. She specializes in family medicine for New Horizons Healthcare. And thank you for being with us today, Dr. Dell.
Thank you for having me.
First, what is shingles?
So, shingles is caused by the same virus that caused chickenpox when a lot of us were younger.
Okay.
Now as kids, they get vaccinated against chickenpox. But some of us who've had chickenpox when we were younger or didn't have a chance of that virus can stay in our body and not really do anything until we get older. And if our immune system decides to go down a little bit, that virus can almost wake up or reactivate, as we call it. Okay. And it can cause shingles. And shingles is usually a pretty painful rash that can occur in one area of your body. It is pretty common in people who are older, people who have decreased immune systems, and sometimes it can spread beyond just that one part of your body.
And I heard it's very painful?
Yes, yeah, it can be. That's usually the sign to a doctor when someone comes in that it's shingles. It's along one part of your body, it's pretty painful, or you may have numbness in that area.
Okay. So, so if you suspect shingles, when should you see your doctor?
I think if you suspect shingles, whether it's you're having numbness or tingling or pain in one area or you're having just that rash, I think it's best to go, immediately to be seen by your doctor so they can start you on medicine.
They can give you something at least.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And how long does the illness last if you do have it?
So those types of rashes can last about 2 to 4 weeks.
Wow.
They usually start off. Pretty red. Sometimes they can have little white spots on top of them, and then after a while, they almost crust over and dry off. And those can still last a little bit longer, but most people have the active rash for about 2 to 4 weeks.
2 to 4 weeks. Okay. We are talking with Dr. Patricia Dell with New Horizons Healthcare about the shingles and pneumonia vaccinations. And what are some complications from shingles that can occur?
So even though it sounds simple enough, it's, a rash in one area of your body. Sometimes it can spread to other parts of your body. It can also involve your nerves. Some people have suffered nerve damage.
Wow.
They've had, eye damage that may or may not come back. And then some people actually can get bacterial infections on top of that rash, too.
That sounds even worse. Okay. So who should get the shingles vaccination? You kind of alluded to it, but when should you get it, and is it contagious?
So shingles is definitely contagious. It's contagious when that rash is fairly new. They say once it's dried over, it's not as contagious, but I still recommend if someone has those symptoms, not to make sure to wash your hands a lot, make sure not to go touching other people if you're around kids or babies especially. Okay. The shingles vaccine is recommended for adults 50 years and older.
Okay. Did that change? Because wasn't it one time it was older than that?
It used to be, yeah, but it's for the past few years at least
it's
been 50 years and older.
Years and older. Okay.
There are some adults, 18 and older, who may have decreased immune systems from medicine they're on or medical conditions, and so they may also qualify for the shingles vaccine. And I recommend if those people think they may qualify, talking with their doctor.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And I didn't even know it was contagious, so thank you for sharing that.
Yes,
I think
it
maybe
is.
some people weren't, they just thought it was an individual thing, but I'm so glad you're educating us about this. Are there certain prescription medications that people may be on, or conditions that would prevent someone from getting the shingles vaccination?
So there are a few things. First of all, we don't recommend the vaccine if someone's pregnant. And we recommend holding off, even if they have a decreased immune system. Okay. There are some blood cancers that people may have that they may not get the vaccine at that time. And then if some people are on high dose medicines that may lower their immune system, such as steroids for a while, it may be worth talking to your doctor about if you would qualify for that vaccine.
Okay, and we're talking with Dr. Patricia Dell with New Horizons Healthcare about the shingles and pneumonia vaccinations. The pneumonia vaccine is also advertised. So let's start out with describing what is pneumonia and how is it different from a chest cold?
Okay. Pneumonia is a general term for an infection of the lungs. It can be caused by a virus, it can be caused by a bacteria, sometimes it can be caused by a fungus as well, but that's our umbrella term for an infection of the lungs.
And that's the breathing and things associated with
Yes,
that? What
yes.
other symptoms might you have if you're not sure?
So symptoms of pneumonia can be shortness of breath. You may cough up sputum that may be a different color. Fevers or chills, and just difficulty breathing or wheezing.
Okay. Oh, good to know. Okay. So I guess, would there be anything associated with that would make it different from a chest cold?
So a chest cold, even though people call it a chest cold, most of that infection is actually in the upper part of your respiratory system.
Yes, I was going to say, it seems more...
So your nose, your throat, your mouth. Now you may feel some congestion and mucus in your lungs, but it's not that's not where the site of the infection is.
So not all colds will turn into pneumonia
No, not
either.
all of them will. Sometimes they can, but
not all of them. Okay. So what are some other symptoms that you might see in older adults especially?
In older adults, like I said before, the shortness of breath, wheezing, they may notice they're coughing up something, but they can also just have fatigue, fever, chills. In older adults too, sometimes they can have changes to their mental status. They may be more confused.
Oh, okay. So there's other things you can look for as well. That makes sense. Now, is this true? I'm just asking this kind of off the cuff, but I've heard when people are in the hospital a long time, sometimes they get pneumonia. Is that because they're like on their back, or is that just unrelated and maybe they have like less, their immune system is compromised?
So actually, there's a few reasons that can cause that. When you are hospitalized, you aren't moving around as much, so your lungs can become exposed. But sometimes in the hospitals there are bacteria or viruses that are spreading around that are resistant to other things, because there's a lot of medicines in the hospital.
That's
there's
right.
a lot of antibiotic use.
That's true.
And so sometimes if people are in the hospital long enough, they can develop an infection in their lungs, even if they didn't originally come in with one.
That. That's what I've heard that. So thank you for clarifying. We are talking with Dr. Patricia Dell with New Horizons Healthcare about the shingles and pneumonia vaccinations. And I guess the next thing is, what has the impact of COVID been on some of these? Are you seeing more cases of pneumonia?
So since COVID is a virus, it can cause pneumonia in the lungs, and that's what we primarily saw, especially in the beginning. And unfortunately, the danger of getting pneumonia in the lungs, even if it's a virus, it can turn into a bacterial infection and become a lot worse.
Oh, okay.
I think the other thing that a lot of people don't think about is, due to the COVID pandemic, a lot of people haven't been going to see their physicians or getting medical care when they really need it. And so we've seen more cases of pneumonia in general because people are not wanting to go to the emergency room, or not following up with their primary care doctor.
Okay, so we had in here, like, when should someone seek medical help? But it sounds like you're addressing that. You can touch on that. And also, are there any long-lasting complications?
I think if you have some shortness of breath, fever, chills, if you're coughing up anything, even if you don't feel good, I always recommend, going to see your primary care doctor.
Probably, especially if you haven't been for a while. Is that what you've mentioned?
Yes.
Thank you.
It never hurts to just make sure.
Mm-hmm. And would there be long-lasting complications, whether it's originally from COVID or some other form of pneumonia?
So, the long-lasting complications usually will remain in the lungs, but sometimes if you get sick enough, you can get an infection, a bacterial infection in your blood, called bacteremia or sepsis. And sometimes, if people have very severe pneumonia, they may have long-lasting shortness of breath, wheezing. Some people who are in the hospital may have to be put on oxygen and leave the hospital on oxygen. Whether that gets better or not, it just depends on time.
Oh, wow. That's good to know. So there is a pneumonia vaccine, and who should get it?
Yes. So there's actually 2 pneumonia vaccines.
Okay.
First of all, anyone 65 or older, we recommend 2 pneumonia vaccines 1 year apart.
Okay.
There are 2 different versions of the pneumonia vaccine, and both of them contain different strains of bacteria. Okay. The idea is that, and it doesn't contain the whole bacteria, it only contains little pieces of it, so you're not going to get pneumonia from the pneumonia vaccine.
Okay.
But the idea is that once we expose your body to these little proteins, your body recognizes them, so that if in the future that bacteria was to come into contact with your body will be able to fight it off.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think when you're talking about it, is it for the rest of your life then? If you get it at 65 and older, will that help you for the rest of your life?
So
supposedly.
If you get it 65 years and older, like I said, we recommend the 2-dose series 1 year apart. You should not need any more pneumonia vaccines. Now, there are people who have weakened immune systems that are younger than 65 or older that may qualify for getting the pneumonia vaccine more frequently. I do know if you're 19 or older and you have a condition that lowers your immune system, whether that's asthma, COPD, you're a tobacco user, a lot of people don't know that, or if you have some type of immune deficiency, you may qualify for the pneumonia vaccine earlier than 65.
Very good. And just to wrap it up then, are there certain medical or prescription medications that people may be on, or conditions that could prevent them from getting the pneumonia vaccine?
So the pneumonia vaccine is actually very safe to give. There's not as many things we have to worry about when considering giving it to someone. The biggest thing was if you've ever had an allergic reaction to that actual vaccine.
Okay.
Or if you're currently very sick with a fever, they recommend not getting it. But otherwise, it's one of those vaccines that we're able to give to a lot of people. It doesn't cause pneumonia, and it has been shown to decrease your chance of being hospitalized with pneumonia.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here today.
Of course.
It was really a pleasure to have you as our guest.
Thank you for inviting me.
We will have the New Horizons Healthcare contact information in our show notes at sisterhoodofthesecondAct.com. And when we come back, the need for affordable housing is outweighing the availability. What's being done to meet the need when Sisterhood of the Second Act continues after this?
Looking for your first home or retirement home? Realtor Monica Nicely can help you find it. Whether you're moving in or out of the Roanoke region, call Monica 540-449-2019, 540-449-2019. Alcova Mortgage Loan Officer Jonathan Sweat helps you seal the deal with the loan to suit your needs with great rates and terms. Call Jonathan 540-314-8843, 540-314-8843.
Alcova Mortgage, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID number 40508, MLSConsumerAccess.org. Terms and conditions apply. All loans subject to credit approval.
Pat Lucas is committed to providing independent financial advice to help women build wealth and security. Call Pat at 540-798-8104, 540-798-8104. Securities and investment advisory services are offered solely through Equity Services Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, 4401 Starkey Road, Roanoke, Virginia 24018, 540-989-4600. Once again from the Fox Radio Roanoke studio, here's Kathy Heberly.
Welcome back to Sisterhood of the Second Act. I'm Kathy Heberly. Virginia Tech researchers have found that there is not enough affordable housing options in Virginia. This is a problem in all areas of the state. Researchers have found a third of all households in the state are cost burdened, which means they're spending more than 30% of their income for housing. Angela Penn is Senior Vice President of Real Estate Development at Total Action for Progress. She has spent her career focusing on housing, working at the Roanoke Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and serving on the Roanoke City Planning Commission before coming to TAP. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's a pleasure to have you. And so, what programs do you oversee for TAP?
Well, our agency has over 30 programs, and so I focus in on those housing programs, rehabilitation programs, energy conservation, weatherization programs, all those programs that are designed to help homeowners maintain their home and keep it for many years to come.
That's wonderful. What a wonderful service. How do you help renters on the verge of being evicted?
So we do have an eviction prevention program operated at our agency, and so when someone comes through, because we look at a whole family model, and so we have case managers who help the intake process, and so when we find someone who is at the verge of eviction, they forward them on to work with those case managers to help prevent that eviction. We've had some relationship building with some of the landlords, and so we try to do some negotiation, and once they hear usually that our agency is involved, they will kind of step back just a little bit to allow us to work with the family to keep them in that housing. But one of the things that we'd like to see is once people realize that they're in a little bit of trouble, if they could come in a little bit earlier, then that would give us the opportunity to work with them, provide more counseling on budgeting, more counseling and awareness on their rights as renters, and just make sure that they have access to other information and services throughout the community.
So that could help them. And it's probably beneficial to the landlords as well, really, in the long run, rather to have somebody that's working to get things straightened out. So what kind of education does TAP provide to people wanting to buy a home?
So we have housing counselors on staff. We have a home buyer education program. And so we offer a free monthly 8-hour course on home buyer education. And so that course, we have our housing counselors that are present that go over the home buying process, as well as a licensed realtor and lenders who come and help individuals and families learn about the lending process, what's involved with getting a realtor, making sure that you get a home inspection, all of those things that you may not be aware of as you start the home buying process.
Yes, and I imagine that they also, like if they're having some credit issues, they'll get some education on that, because that would help a lot, wouldn't it?
Yes, they will. For that, we actually do one-on-one individual
Wonderful.
work. So they get the overview in the class, but then they can schedule one-on-one sessions with our housing counselor that will help them work through any credit issues that they may have.
That's wonderful, because sometimes that's the only thing preventing
Yes.
people from getting
Yes.
housing, and they're more than happy to do what they can, but you don't know where to start.
Yes.
And you do need help. So that's a really important service. And I was interested to see that TAP also provides real estate development services. What does that mean, and who do you work with on these projects?
So real estate development is really looking at some of the larger projects that we've been involved with. For example, in Bath County, we did a community development block grant program with the county where we did renovation on approximately 30 homes in that community. So it was really those larger projects. We've worked with our Head Start program. We've renovated the old Riley Court Elementary School, 2 of the buildings there, to provide child care and education services through our Head Start component. So it really is those big construction projects that really make up the real estate development services that we offer.
What a wonderful service that is as well. I mean, it's helping the community as well as the individuals. So we are talking with Angela Penn, the Senior Vice President of Real Estate Development at TAP, about affordable housing, and it's very interesting. What can be done to create more affordable housing? We all want to know this.
Yes, so this is a big problem.
Yes,
Everybody. It's going to take multiple people coming to the table to solve this. But one of the things is stabilizing the housing stock that we have. And so making sure that homeowners who are in their homes have access to programs that can help them with their renovations so that those housing remain affordable and they remain in good condition. Then the second step is looking at programs that come together to help individuals. Right now, the city has a program where individuals there are about 2,800 houses that would be eligible for an auxiliary dwelling to be placed on that property. And so they would just need to go to the city of Roanoke to apply for such a permit, and they could build an auxiliary dwelling on their property. And so they could build a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, and these types of structures could help provide other housing options for individuals as well. So that's a really exciting program, and I think the city is going to be rolling out some marketing efforts to really promote that so members of the community would be aware that that's an option.
I think that's a really great option, because oftentimes it's lack of land that is preventing people from building or from adding on. And if you can't go sideways, but if you have room in the back, or then, or a side yard, that would be a wonderful option for people. I really like that, and I can't wait to hear more about it. We talked about the affordable housing. There seems to be more people living on the streets in Roanoke than pre-pandemic. You mentioned to our producer that there has been a perfect storm of sorts leading to an increase in homelessness, which is frightening. Explain for our listeners and viewers.
So prior to the pandemic, people were working, people were going out. There was a period of time during the pandemic we were all shut down.
Yes.
So if you didn't have a job that you could do remotely from home and you relied on going in every day to do that job, you may not have been able to do that.
Yes.
Then there were also children who couldn't go to school and that they were at home learning virtually. So parents may have had to stay home because children weren't going to school. So that
they also couldn't go to work, right?
So a loss of income.
That does sound like a perfect storm.
And then you have the eviction moratorium that was in place for a while, and then that was lifted. So then you had more people facing evictions at that point in time. So all of that coalesced to create the situations where more people were experiencing homelessness.
Oh my goodness, that does sound frightening and very understandable, and probably not just in our area.
Right.
I'm sure this has gone on all over. So, because of that, it sounds like you do have many options for people. And I think the other thing we wanted to do, are there other organizations in the area that can help create more affordable housing in the Roanoke area?
So there are partners throughout that are working to do that. The city has pulled together partners to talk about this. When you talk about the Community Housing Resource Center, and you talk about Habitat for Humanity, and you talk about Renovation Alliance, all of these organizations and many, many more. You have financial institutions, Freedom First with the Financial Empowerment Center, that are all coming to the table to try to provide services and address the issue. So it is bigger than one organization, but it is many organizations coming together to talk about the resources that they have and how they can help individuals and families.
That is so wonderful. We are talking with Angela Penn, Senior Vice President of Real Estate Development at TAP, about affordable housing. How does the lack of affordable housing impact our local economy and job growth?
So when we talk about affordable housing, we are putting people to work. When you think about doing the renovations to housing or building housing, that impacts the construction field, that impacts laborers, electricians, plumbers. When you talk about materials that are being purchased, that can be purchased locally. So all of those things have a ripple effect on the economy when you talk about building housing or renovating housing. It really is an economic driver within the community.
That benefits, again, everybody in the community. So you mentioned some of the programs TAP offers to help people get into homes. How do you help people who are already in homes but not be able to afford needed repairs?
So we have a wonderful program, collaboration with the City of Roanoke. We do a major rehab program, and so we're able to go in, assess the needs for a homeowner. They may not be able to put a roof on their home. They may not be able to do replacement windows, but we can go in and we can do those things for those homeowners free of charge to them. So that they don't have to burden those costs, because not everyone has $10,000, $12,000 that they can say, let me just go replace this roof. Or let me take care of upgrading my electrical panel that needs to be done. So
that's wonderful, because I think that is a big issue. People want to stay in their homes, so they're already happy. You worked with the Roanoke Redevelopment and Housing Authority before coming to TAP and served on Roanoke City Planning Commission. What is the issue of why is this issue of affordable housing so important to you?
It's a passion for me. I experienced at a young age, my mother and I, single family household, single parent household, and we experienced homelessness. And so I understand what it's like to live in a hotel, what it's like to be unsure about your housing, and all of that while trying to go to school. So it's a passion for me, because I understand how frightening that could be.
I totally understand. So TAP is a nonprofit. How can people help, and what kind of volunteer opportunities are there?
Well, there's so many volunteer opportunities, and we love volunteers and appreciate their support. We have a volunteer coordinator at our agency. Her name is Mackenzie, and she'd be happy to hear from you and set you about a course of volunteering. We have a free tax clinic every year that we're always looking for volunteers to assist with that. We have mentoring programs that we look for volunteers to come in and help us with those opportunities as well. So we have lots of opportunities for volunteerism at the agency.
So if you feel called, you'd like to help, they'll find something for you.
Absolutely.
You will find something to use somebody's skills.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for being with us today. It has been such a pleasure to hear about these programs.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to share information about programs and services.
It's been very, very educational. And we will have a link to TAP in our show notes at sisterhoodofthesecond.act.com. And we'll be back to wrap up the show after this.
Kathy's wardrobe provided by cabbie stylist Darlene Marshall. See the styles in our show notes at sisterhoodofthesecond.act.com.
I want to thank Dr. Dell and Angela Penn for joining us today. Dr. Dell reminded us of the importance of getting a shingles and pneumonia vaccination as we get older. Angela helped us understand the issues surrounding affordable housing and what we can do to help. I'm Kathy Heberly. Join us again next week for another edition of Sisterhood of the Second Act.